Today's video is part 8 in our series on the TI99 4A. We are going to be talking about the 32K sidecar. Importantly, what is it? Why is it called a 32K sidecar? What is it useful for, and why do we need it? As a recap, what we're trying to do is take this old TI99 4A and connect it to the internet. Pictures are so useful. Let's go to a Venn diagram to explain what's going on. See, we have a TI99 4A, and we want to be able to get to the internet. The problem is this. We can't. Natively, the TI99 4A has no way to connect to a network, so it can't get to the internet. You must first be able to connect to a network, then you might be able to connect to the internet. So we have to add something. We have to use the magic of technology in order to make the TI99 4A get to the internet. The 32K sidecar is one of those components that's going to help us do that. So first question, why do they call it a sidecar? Seems to be an odd kind of thing. Well, when the TI was originally released, when you bought the TI, you bought the computer. You bought that like the thing with the keyboard on it. That was the computer, right? You could also buy a monitor. There's a bunch of other things that were sold as peripherals. One of those peripherals, or some of those, there's a set of the peripherals that are sidecars. You've seen the motorcycles, right? The sidecar motorcycles with sidecars, like in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. Well, though that's a sidecar is something that goes on the side, right? So that they just call it that. And there's this whole string, this whole slew of them. So when you got the TI, you were able to extend its functionality. You know, that they didn't want you to have to buy the entire universe of TI components. You could just buy the deck, and then you could extend it with these sidecar extensions. One of those sidecar extensions is the speech synthesizer that we covered in a previous video. Another one of the sidecars is a 32K sidecar. Now, full disclosure, a little bit of a disclaimer here. This video might get a little nerdy. And I know I've set your expectations and you set that bar high on these videos. They've been so engaging and interesting and just, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. This one might get a little nerdy. So full disclosure, I'm warning you now. We'll try to keep it at the appropriate level, but there's some things that you have to understand about how computers work and why the 32K sidecar becomes necessary. So I'd never promised there wouldn't be math. So let's talk about the 32K. What the heck is 32K? Well, some of you may know or may not know that computers have what's called memory. Memories. And that memory is often referred to with these kind of monikers. 32K, 1 gigabyte, 5 gigabyte. There's all of these ways to refer to computer memory. Well, 32K is referring to that. It's referring to the size of the memory. In this case, 32K, the K, of course, is 1,000, so 32,000. Well, it's 32,000 bytes of memory. So this 32K sidecar adds 32,000 bytes of memory to the TI99 4A. So what we have is, as I've got here, this picture, this is our current setup. And you can see that we've got a speech synthesizer attached to our computer, and we have a monitor. We've got the TI Invaders cartridge. All of that stuff works fantastic. Now we need to add things to this setup in order to get to the internet. Well, you might be asking yourself, or asking me specifically, Dan, why do we need to add something to the TI99 4A? I thought all computers talk to the internet. Well, not in the old days. You know, it used to be that you had a computer and you were able to use it and you were able to do cool things with it, but it didn't necessarily talk to anybody else. It was its own thing. It was a home computer. Well, okay, so 32K, how much more is that? I mean, how much memory did the TI99 4A come with? Well, it came with 16K. So if you added 32K, you gave your computer 200% more memory. That was a pretty big deal back then. Now, how does that stack up compared to modern computers? Well, the computer that I'm running this on right now has 16 gigabytes of memory. Well, the answer here is it kind of doesn't. You can't even see the TI99 4A. And this is something that has happened in computing from day one. It gets more powerful, and it gets more powerful faster. And this is why this is interesting to people like myself, because of the fact that what we're doing today it feels like there's no limitations. When we originally started doing computing, there were pretty strict limitations to what you could do and how you could do it. And modern computing, well, we have more memory, we have more speed, we have more resources available, so there are many things that can be done. And it's good for people like myself to look back and remember what it's like to work in a confined, constricted kind of area, because we need to know how these things work if they're going to be running our world. And that's kind of why we do this. This is why this is interesting to people like myself, because we have been doing it for so long. Boy, we kind of get spoiled. And I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. Yeah, these computers they're like taking over everything, right? But we need to know how they work. And so it's good to get back to your roots and understand, at the machine level, when you are limited in the amount of memory and RAM and CPU and all those things that you can use, well, how can you continue to make things work? So these kind of projects, taking something like a TI99 4A and making it connect to the internet, well, it reminds us of where we've come from and how far we've come. Because the last thing we want to do is become ungrateful. That'd be terrible. Now, we had the case where we went and we bought a TI speech synthesizer from eBay. We actually found a new one. That was pretty cool, right? I'm not seeing similar accessibility and availability of the original 32K sidecars. And they look kind of like this. So those you don't see a whole lot of. But of course, like we saw on the chart, there's been advances in memory and the size of things, and so we can now get a 32K sidecar that's not quite so large, and there are plenty of those available. Through my good friends at CoreI64.com, I got one of these. It's one of the new 32K sidecars, much smaller, much more compact. That shouldn't surprise us. Things have been getting smaller with computers since we released them. There's the connector so that you can plug it into the side. It has an LED there, a power LED, so that you can see that it's getting power. And it has a place for a power adapter. So let's go ahead and plug this in and see how it works. So it took a little bit of doing, but we finally got the thing plugged in there. You just have to kind of work it. The clip is just odd. So, you work on it and you finally get it plugged in. We've got our computer, we've got our speech synthesizer, and we have our 32K sidecar plugged in. Now, you remember when we were looking at it, this right here is the power light, and you can see that there is no light. We don't have power. So the question becomes, well, do we have a defective sidecar here? Well, the answer is no, because power is supplied to this sidecar only through the cable. You remember when we were looking at it, there was a power light, but there's also a place for a power cable. Well, you have to supply power independently. Now, to test this theory, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the speech synthesizer in the 32K sidecar. We're going to plug the 32K sidecar directly into the board and see whether or not we get a power light. Well, apparently I have no idea what I'm talking about. So we've got this speech synthesizer out of the way now, and we have the 32K sidecar plugged right into the deck. Now, this doesn't appear to be working. I do not see a light, and the 32K sidecar is plugged in. I don't think that it is. I mean, it looks like it's plugged in all the way, I guess. All the way. So we're going to see if we can find a power pack for this. I believe I might have one. I've got a lot of power packs lying around. Let's see if we can find one that'll work. Well, at this point, I'm beginning to think we might never get this thing on the internet. I do have plenty of power supplies. I just don't have the right one I need. 5 volt 2 amp. I had a 5 volt 2.5 amp. Didn't work. So back to Amazon to find what I needed. I didn't have a 5 volt 2 amp power adapter lying around. Figured Amazon might have one lying around, and sure enough, they did. This one right here. And that came in a couple days. This one had the nice feature of having a set of adapters to make sure that I had an end that would fit actually into the 32K sidecar. plugged it all in, no LED.
Why do you mock me, O Lord?
Homer, that's not God. That's just a waffle that Bart tossed up there.
And so at this point, I'm wondering, well, this cannot be a good way to test this, so I have to come up with another way. And the only other way I could think of was, well, if I would run a 32K program and it would work or not work, well, that would be a sure sign that the 32K sidecar is working or not working. The problem was I didn't have a 32K program. I had TI Invaders, but TI Invaders is not a 32K cartridge. So I could go to the eBay, or I could go to the internet, one of the hobbyist sites, and buy a 32K game, or I could just go the full route, and I knew I was going here anyway, and get my very own FinalGROM 99 cartridge. Now, of course, you're wondering, what is a FinalGROM 99 cartridge? That's a great question, dear listener and viewer. So it's a cartridge that has been developed by all the homebrew and hobbyists out there that allows you to run anything from the TI99 4A. A quick visit to arcadeshopper.com and you too can have your very own 99 FinalGROM cartridge. Now, when you order one of these, you'll get the cartridge itself, and you will also need an SD card. Specifically, you'll need an SD card with 32 gigabytes or smaller, because when you get it, you're going to have to format this SD card for FAT32. Once you do that, you go to this website, and you're going to download from this address all of the ROMs and the files that you're going to need to put on this SD card, so that you can put the SD card into the FinalGROM cartridge, like that, right? And then you're going to plug that into your TI99 4A and get to all of these games and programs. You're going to have the entire TI99 4A library on one cartridge. That's what the FinalGROM is. So we'll have something, a 32K game that we can finally use to test whether the sidecar is working. Okay, we have our TI99 4A turned on. We've got the FinalGROM cartridge in with the SD card with everything loaded on it. We are ready to test. Let's see if this 32K sidecar works. So if we hit any key to start, we now have 2 for FinalGROM 99. So I'm going to hit 2. And keeping an eye on that LED over there. That's going to be right over there. Now we've got this list here, and it's listing, you would push A for the dev folder, B for the edu folder. These are actually folders on that SD card there. That was from that zip file that we had downloaded, extracted onto this card here. So we want the games, because I know there are some 32K games. So if I hit C on there, it will then load, and you see B there is 32K. So if we go to B, we get a list of 32K games. Now, if I start any of these games, we should see that 32K sidecar spring to life. We should see a light. So we're going to pick the H there, ET on land, because that brings to mind the famously bad ET game that the Atari 2600 had created. Historically bad video game there, the video game that was said to bring about the end of the Atari 2600. So maybe we'll see some flashes of that kind of greatness here, but in 32K glory. So we're going to hit H. Keeping an eye on that cartridge. There it is, 32K. We see the light has turned on. We've got developed by Looking Glass there, and let's see what happens when we hit any key. Sweet action. Yeah, look at that, man. That's cutting edge. Look at those trees, man. They look like they could be like literally in my backyard. That is clearly a 32K intro to a video game, and you knew you were about to experience something amazing back then, right? So there you go. The 32K sidecar works. Okay, so now we've got 32K. We've got our FinalGROM. The next video, we will be talking about the Tippy and how that works. Well, there you have it. The 32K sidecar works. We have confirmation, and we also have our FinalGROM cartridge up and running with all of the utilities and games on it. So in the next video, we'll be talking about the Tippy. If you like the video, please like it. If you will share it, that will help me. This is life, if I recall correctly.